The Deep Space Radar Station at Earth's lunar outpost detected an anomaly. A strange energy signature was approaching, too fast and too precise to be a meteor. Alarms blared across the control room, alerting the Earth Defense Command. Within seconds, analysts confirmed the terrifying truth. It was an alien warship. On Earth, Commander Alex Carter was finishing his late-night routine at a military research facility when his communicator lit up. A priority alert flashed across the screen. Unidentified extraterrestrial vessel entering Earth's atmosphere. His heart pounded. It had been 6 years since he last encountered something like this. 6 years since she disappeared without a trace. Before he could process the thought, Earth's planetary defenses activated. High-powered laser turrets locked onto the approaching vessel. Missiles armed. Fighters scrambled. Then came the transmission. A desperate, familiar voice echoed through the command center. "Alex, I need you. They're coming." His breath caught in his throat. It was her, Oxira. But before he could respond, Earth's automated defenses fired. The sky lit up as the alien ship was hit. Fire and smoke trailed behind as it spiraled downward, crashing into the desolate wastelands outside New Denver. Alex didn't hesitate. Grabbing his combat gear, he jumped into a high-speed military aircraft. He needed answers. He needed to know why Oxira had returned, and what she was running from. As he soared toward the crash site, he noticed something chilling. Black, shadow-like figures moving toward the wreckage. Cloaked assassins. If Oxira was still alive, she wouldn't be for long. 2. A past that never faded. Alex landed near the burning wreckage, gun in hand, scanning the area for threats. Smoke curled into the air, and shattered alien metal lay scattered across the ground. Then he saw her. Oxira lay against a broken console, her silver armor cracked, her breathing shallow. Her deep violet eyes flickered open as she saw him. "Alex," she whispered. 1,000 emotions surged inside him. Anger, relief, confusion. He wanted to yell at her, to demand why she left. But this wasn't the time. "You're hurt," he said instead, kneeling beside her. Oxira gave a weak smile. "You should see the other guys." Before he could respond, a whispering sound came from behind. His instincts screamed at him, and he spun around, gun raised just in time to block a blade aimed at his throat. The Zorvath assassin, cloaked in dark, shifting armor, lunged at him. Alex fired, but the assassin twisted impossibly fast, dodging the bullets. Oxira, despite her injuries, sprang up, her gauntlet glowing, as she unleashed a plasma wave that sent the assassin flying. But more were coming. Their glowing red eyes cut through the darkness. "Move!" Alex shouted. Oxira staggered but kept up as they ran toward his ship. The assassins pursued, their speed unnatural. Alex fired behind him, hitting one square in the chest, but it barely slowed down. They reached the ship, and Alex slammed the controls. The doors closed just as an assassin's blade scraped against the hull. The engines roared, and they blasted off, leaving the assassins disappearing into the night. As they soared away, Alex turned to her. "Start talking. Now." Oxira hesitated, then whispered, "They're coming for Earth, Alex. And this time, you won't survive." 3. The hidden threat. Back at a secure underground bunker, Alex paced as Oxira patched her wounds. He had 1,000 questions, but one mattered most. "Why are they after you?" Oxira exhaled slowly. "Because I stole something." Alex folded his arms. "What?" She locked eyes with him. A warning. She tapped a small holographic device on her wrist, and a projection filled the room. It showed a massive Zorvath fleet, thousands of ships, war machines, and something even worse. Towering eye-controlled titans, built for one purpose: extinction. Alex's blood ran cold. When? A month, maybe less. He clenched his fists. And you expect me to believe you after 6 years of silence? Zyra's voice broke. I left because they made me, Alex. They said if I stayed, they would wipe out Earth then. I did it to protect you. The words hit him harder than any bullet ever could. Before he could respond, alarms blared. The bunker's defense grid had detected intruders. The Zorvath had found them. 4. The final mission. Explosions rocked the facility as Alex and Zyra sprinted toward the hangar. The Zorvath assassins had breached the bunker, moving with terrifying precision. Alex took cover behind a console and fired. Zyra unleashed her alien energy blades, slicing through the attackers with deadly efficiency. Gunfire, plasma blasts, the scent of burned metal and blood. But they were losing. The assassins were too many. Zyra grabbed Alex's wrist and pulled him toward an emergency escape shaft. We need to get to the core base. The artifact is there. Alex didn't argue. If there was even a chance to stop the invasion, he would take it. They reached the surface and stole a high-speed stealth ship, pushing toward the Arctic research base where the artifact, the last hope for humanity, was hidden. 5. Humanity's last stand. The Arctic base was already under siege. The Zorvath fleet had sent its first wave. Jet-black ships rained plasma fire upon Earth's forces. The moment Alex and Zyra landed, they were thrown into a full-scale war zone. Go! Alex shouted, covering Zyra as she sprinted toward the underground vault. He took down 2 assassins before an explosion threw him backward. Zyra reached the vault, hacking through the last layer of security. Inside, on a raised platform, lay a pulsating crystalline artifact, the last remnant of ancient human power. She grabbed it. Energy surged through her body, and suddenly, she understood. Humans were never weak. They had been designed as warriors, their potential locked away by the galaxy's ancient empires. The artifact was the key. She turned just in time to see Alex surrounded by enemies, bloodied but still standing. Alex, she shouted, tossing him the artifact. The moment his hands touched it, a blinding light erupted. His body surged with unstoppable power. The assassins lunged. Alex moved like lightning. He struck with impossible speed, shattering them in an instant. They had finally unlocked what made humanity truly terrifying. 6. A new beginning. With Alex's newfound power, they turned the tide. The remaining Earth forces rallied behind him. One by one, the Zorvath forces fell. Then the flagship arrived. The Zorvath Supreme Commander descended, a monstrous, AI-infused entity. Alex grinned. I've been waiting for this. The final battle was nothing short of legendary. Alex and Zyra fought side by side, humanity's first warrior and the alien who loved him. In the end, Alex drove his energy blade straight through the Supreme Commander's core. The flagship imploded. The invasion was over. As the dust settled, Zyra looked at him, eyes shimmering. You saved Earth. Alex smirked. We saved it, together. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. And now, he smiled, pulling her into a kiss. Now, we rebuild. Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never forget it. The end. The air smelled of burnt metal and scorched earth. Alex Carter crouched near the wreckage of the alien ship, his pulse pounding in his ears. His weapon was raised, scanning for threats. The ship had crashed hard. Debris scattered across the barren land. Before he could respond, a strange sound cut through the air. A low, whispering hum. His instincts screamed at him. He turned sharply, raising his rifle just in time. A shadow moved in the smoke, fast and silent. The Zorvath assassins had arrived. A blade lashed toward him, gleaming in the firelight. Alex dodged, barely avoiding a strike aimed at his throat. He fired, but the assassin twisted impossibly fast, dodging the bullets like a phantom. Another figure emerged, their red eyes glowing like burning embers. Syra, despite her injuries, reacted instantly. Her gauntlet flared to life, unleashing a wave of violet energy that sent one assassin flying. But more were coming, their black armor shifting like liquid in the darkness. "Move!" Alex shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward his ship. She stumbled, but kept moving. The assassins pursued, their speed unnatural, their movements precise. Alex fired again, hitting one square in the chest. It barely slowed him down. They reached the ship. Alex slammed his hand against the control panel, and the hatch hissed open. Just as they stumbled inside, an assassin lunged, its blade scraping against the hull as the doors sealed shut. The ship roared to life, engines firing as they blasted away from the battlefield. Alex barely had time to breathe before turning to Syra. "Start talking. Now." She hesitated, her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read. "They're coming for Earth, Alex. And this time, you won't survive." The words sent a chill through him. She wasn't talking about the assassins. Something far worse was on its way. The flight back to the underground base was tense. Syra barely spoke, her gaze fixed on the stars outside the viewport. Alex stole glances at her between piloting maneuvers, his mind racing with questions. "Where have you been?" he finally asked. She didn't look at him. "Running. From them. From everyone." The answer made something tighten in his chest. He had spent years wondering what had happened to her. He had convinced himself she was dead, lost in the endless wars that raged across the galaxy. Now she was here, alive, and still keeping secrets. The ship touched down inside a secure military bunker beneath the frozen wastelands of Antarctica. Armed guards surrounded them the moment they stepped off the ramp, their weapons trained on Syra. "Stand down," Alex ordered. "Sir, she's an unauthorized alien presence." "I said stand down." His voice left no room for argument. The guards hesitated but lowered their rifles. Syra smirked. "Still bossing people around. I see." Alex ignored the comment and led her into the main control room. The bunker was a fortress, lined with high-tech weaponry and reinforced steel. He motioned for her to sit while he accessed the command console. "Explain," he demanded. Syra exhaled slowly, then activated a small device on her wrist. A holographic projection filled the room. The image showed a massive fleet, thousands of warships, each more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. But what chilled Alex the most were the massive figures towering behind them. Titanic machines, war-forged AI constructs built for one purpose: extinction. Alex clenched his fists. When? A month, maybe less. He stared at the image, his mind racing. Earth's forces were strong, but against an armada like this, they didn't stand a chance. "How do you know this?" he asked. Syra met his gaze. "Because I stole the information from the High Command." His eyes widened. "You what?" She looked away. "I had no choice. If they knew I was warning you, they would have wiped Earth out already. I've been running ever since." Alex ran a hand through his hair. This was insane. Earth had prepared for alien invasions before, but nothing like this. If what she was saying was true, they had less than a month before total annihilation. "You should have told me sooner," he said, his voice quieter now. "I couldn't," she whispered. "If I stayed, they would have killed you. I thought, if I left, they would forget about Earth. But they didn't." He wanted to be angry. He wanted to yell at her for disappearing, for letting him believe she was gone. But instead, he just felt tired. Before he could respond, alarms blared through the facility. "Security breach," a voice shouted over the comms. The bunker's defense grid had detected intruders. The Zorvath had found them. Explosions rocked the underground base as Alex and Syra sprinted toward the hangar. The facility was under siege. The Zorvath assassins had breached the outer walls, moving with terrifying precision. Soldiers fought back, but they were being cut down one by one. The assassins moved like ghosts, their forms flickering in and out of visibility. Alex fired at an approaching enemy, his bullets barely grazing the assassin before it vanished into thin air. He barely had time to react before another came from the side. A blade swung toward him. Kavdira blocked it with her gauntlet, unleashing a blast of energy that sent the attacker flying. They kept moving. The only way out was through the emergency escape shaft. "Come on," Alex shouted, covering her as she sprinted ahead. Plasma fire rained around them. The corridor shook from the explosions. Reaching the surface, they stole a high-speed stealth ship, barely escaping as the bunker collapsed in a fiery explosion behind them. As they sped toward the Arctic research base, Xyra turned to him, her expression grim. "The artifact is there," she said. Alex tightened his grip on the controls. If there was even a chance to stop the invasion, he would take it, even if it meant trusting her again. The Arctic winds howled outside the research base, their chilling embrace rattling the steel walls. Inside, Alex stood by the reinforced windows, watching the snow whip against the distant mountains. The facility was built to withstand the harshest conditions, but today it felt fragile, vulnerable. Xyra sat on the edge of a medical table, her violet eyes scanning the holographic projections hovering before her. The wounds she had sustained during the attack were healing fast, thanks to advanced alien nanotech running through her veins. But the exhaustion in her expression was harder to mask. Alex folded his arms, glancing at the scientist standing nearby. Dr. Elias Monroe, one of Earth's leading experts in xenotechnology, had been briefed on the situation the moment they arrived. Now, his face was pale as he stared at the data Xyra had retrieved. "This can't be real," Monroe muttered. "It's real," Xyra said, her voice firm. "And it's coming." The holographic projection displayed the enemy fleet, a monstrous armada stretching across the void of space, moving toward Earth like an unstoppable force of nature. But the real danger wasn't just the ships. It was something else, something far worse. "They call it the Harbinger," Xyra continued, zooming in on the massive construct at the heart of the fleet. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. A towering mechanical behemoth, its dark metal shifting like liquid, its core pulsing with unnatural energy. Alex frowned. "What is it?" "A weapon," she said. "One designed to erase civilizations. The Harbinger isn't just a war machine. It's a self-evolving AI entity. It doesn't just destroy planets. It learns from them, absorbs their knowledge, their technology, and then it wipes them out." A heavy silence filled the room. "How do we stop it?" Monroe asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Xyra hesitated. "There's only one way." She pointed to a separate projection, a small artifact, ancient and covered in alien inscriptions. It's called the Obsidian Core. It's the only thing that can disrupt the Harbinger's control systems." Alex studied the image. "Where is it?" Xyra's jaw tightened. "It's here." Monroe's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean here? In this facility?" Xyra nodded. "The core was hidden on Earth centuries ago, before your species even achieved space travel. The Galactic Council didn't trust humanity, so they buried it where no one would look. But now, it's the only thing standing between survival and annihilation." Alex exhaled slowly. "Then we need to get it. Now." Before anyone could respond, the facility's alarms blared. "Perimeter breach." A soldier's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple hostiles inbound." The transmission cut to static. Alex grabbed his rifle, his instincts kicking in. They were here. Xyra's expression darkened. Zorvath assassins. A deafening explosion shook the base. The lights flickered. The security monitors displayed black armored figures moving like shadows, slipping past defenses, cutting down soldiers with silent efficiency. "They're after the core," Alex growled. Monroe backed away. "We have to evacuate." "No," Alex snapped. If they get to the core first, it's over. Zyra was already moving, activating her gauntlet. Energy pulsed along its surface, humming with raw power. Alex followed, rifle raised as they sprinted through the base. The corridors were a war zone. Gunfire echoed as human soldiers fought desperately against the Zordath assassins, but it was a slaughter. The assassins moved like phantoms, their black armor shifting with each movement, their blades slicing through defenses with terrifying precision. A soldier collapsed ahead, his throat cut before he could react. Alex fired, taking down 2 assassins, but more emerged from the shadows. One lunged at him. Kyra intercepted, her gauntlet pulsing as she unleashed a shockwave that sent the attacker flying. "We're outnumbered," she muttered. Alex gritted his teeth. "Then we fight smarter." They pushed forward, weaving through the chaos. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The core was stored in a vault beneath the research facility, hidden in an underground chamber reinforced with alien technology. They'd reached the security doors, but something was wrong. The doors were already open. Alex's stomach twisted. No. Inside, the chamber was dark, filled with the distant hum of ancient technology. At the center, the obsidian core hovered above a pedestal, its smooth black surface shimmering with an eerie glow. Standing beside it was a figure draped in dark metallic armor, its crimson eyes locking onto them. It wasn't Zorvath. It was something worse. Zyra inhaled sharply, the Harbinger's emissary. The figure's voice was like a whisper in Alex's mind, echoing with an unnatural resonance. Too late. With a simple motion, the emissary touched the core. A pulse of energy exploded outward, knocking Alex and Zyra off their feet. The walls cracked, the very air vibrating as if reality itself was shifting. Then the core vanished. The emissary had taken it. Alex's vision blurred as he struggled to rise. Zyra was beside him, her face filled with something he had never seen before. Fear. The emissary tilted its head. "Your world is doomed." Then it disappeared. Silence. Alex forced himself up. The room felt empty now, lifeless. The one thing that could stop the Harbinger was gone. Zyra clenched her fists. "We failed." Alex shook his head, determination burning in his eyes. "No, not yet." He turned to Monroe, who had just stumbled into the room, his face pale with horror. "Tell me you have a backup plan," Alex said. Monroe swallowed hard. There might be another way." Zyra looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" Monroe hesitated, then pulled up another projection, a location deep in the ruins of an abandoned alien outpost, hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean. "There's a failsafe," he said. "Something that can still stop the Harbinger." Alex exhaled. It wasn't over yet. But time was running out. The cold wind howled across the landing pad as Alex tightened the straps on his gear. The sky above was a deep, endless black, dotted with distant stars that felt impossibly far away. The weight of what had just happened still sat heavy in his chest. The obsidian core was gone, stolen, and with it, their only real chance to stop the Harbinger before it reached Earth. Zyra stood beside him, her violet eyes locked onto the holographic display flickering in front of them. Monroe had pulled up a new set of coordinates, a location buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy for thousands of years. This outpost, Monroe explained, his voice tight with urgency, was built by an ancient alien race, the Protheans. They were the first to resist the Harbinger, but they lost. Before they were wiped out, they created a failsafe, something powerful enough to stop it. He tapped on the screen, and the image zoomed in, revealing a massive submerged structure. "It's called the Celestial Engine. If we can get to it, we might still have a chance." Alex clenched his jaw. The mission had just changed, but the stakes remained the same. "Then that's where we're going," he said firmly. Syra nodded. But we won't be the only ones. The moment the emissary took the obsidian core, every enemy force in the galaxy would have been alerted. If the celestial engine was their last hope, the Harbinger's forces would be moving to destroy it before they could even get close. Monroe swallowed hard. You'll be walking into a war zone. Alex smirked grimly. Wouldn't be the first time. Within minutes, they were in the air, the dropship roaring to life as they soared over the vast Pacific. The tension inside the craft was palpable. This was it. Alex checked his weapon, running through the plan in his head. The outpost was buried beneath the ocean, meaning they would need to dive deep into an ancient structure that hadn't been touched in millennia. If Monroe was right, the celestial engine could still be activated, but there was no telling what else lay beneath the waves. As they neared the coordinates, Syra's gauntlet pulsed with energy. I'm detecting movement below. Alex leaned forward, watching the scanners. Multiple unidentified signatures were converging on their location. The enemy was already here. Looks like we don't have the element of surprise, he muttered. The dropship shuddered as explosions erupted around them. Plasma fire rained from enemy fighters, their sleek black forms darting through the sky like vultures. Hold on, the pilot shouted as the ship veered sharply. Alex gripped the straps as they spiraled downward. Below, the ocean stretched out in all directions, an abyss of darkness swallowing everything beneath it. The facility they needed to reach was at the ocean floor, hidden beneath layers of ice and rock. We need to jump now, Syra shouted. There was no time to hesitate. Alex grabbed his gear and leaped out of the dropship, the freezing wind slamming against his body as he plummeted toward the water. The impact was instant. The cold swallowed him whole, but his suit's environmental controls kicked in immediately, adjusting the temperature and pressure as he sank into the depths. Around him, Syra and the others followed, their suits glowing faintly as they activated their underwater thrusters. The descent was fast, but the darkness below was suffocating. Something was down here, watching, waiting. Syra's voice crackled through the comms. I'm picking up. Before she could finish, a massive shadow moved through the water. Alex's breath caught as something ancient and mechanical slithered through the abyss. The Harbinger's forces had arrived, and they had brought monsters. Drones incoming, Monroe shouted. Metallic creatures surged toward them, alien war machines, sleek and sharp, moving like predators in the deep. Their eyes burned red as they locked onto the team. Move, Alex ordered. The team split, dodging as the drones opened fire. Bright energy beams sliced through the water, illuminating the darkness like underwater lightning. Alex dodged left, raising his weapon and firing a burst of explosive rounds. The first drone shattered, pieces of metal and glowing circuits sinking into the black. Syra spun through the water, her gauntlet pulsing with raw energy as she tore through another machine with a single strike. But more were coming. Too many. Almost there, Monroe called. The outpost is just below. A faint glow appeared beneath them, a massive structure built into the ocean floor, its surface covered in strange alien symbols, flickering with a dim blue light. The celestial engine was inside, but the enemy wasn't going to let them reach it. A hulking figure descended from the darkness, its body a terrifying fusion of metal and living energy. It was one of the Harbinger's champions, a war construct designed to kill anything that stood in its way. Alex gritted his teeth. They had seconds to act. I'll distract it, Syra shouted. Get inside. Not happening, Alex shot back. Syra didn't listen. She launched herself toward the construct, her gauntlet flaring as she slammed into it with full force. The shockwave rippled through the water, sending the creature staggering back. Alex cursed but didn't waste time. Monroe, find a way to open that door. Monroe was already on it, his hands moving rapidly over a control panel embedded in the structure's surface. Almost. Got it. A deep rumble echoed through the ocean floor. The doors to the outpost slid open. "Go!" Alex shouted. They rushed inside, the heavy doors sealing shut behind them just as the construct lunged. The sudden silence was deafening. They had made it, but the real battle was just beginning. Inside, the chamber was massive, filled with glowing consoles and ancient machines. At the center stood the celestial engine, a towering structure, pulsing with immense energy. Alex exhaled. "We found it." But before they could move, a figure stepped from the shadows. The emissary. "You shouldn't have come here," it said, its crimson eyes burning. Alex's grip tightened on his weapon. This was it. The final mission had begun. The chamber was eerily silent, except for the low hum of the celestial engine pulsating at the center. The ancient alien machine radiated power, its core glowing with a shifting blue energy that cast long, flickering shadows across the walls. Alex stood still, his pulse hammering in his ears. They had made it inside, but so had the emissary. The tall, armored figure loomed before them, its crimson eyes gleaming with cold amusement. The emissary's presence felt suffocating, an unnatural force pressing against the room like an unseen weight. It didn't just look at them. It studied them, as if measuring their worth before deciding how to kill them. "You are too late," the emissary spoke, its voice smooth yet mechanical, layered with echoes that sent a chill down Alex's spine. "The Harbinger's fleet has already arrived. Your world will burn." Alex tightened his grip on his rifle, stepping forward. "Then we'll burn with it before we let you win." A ghost of a smile flickered across the emissary's face. How human. Without warning, it moved. A blur of motion, faster than any living thing should be. 1 second it stood still, the next it was upon them, a blade of crimson energy materializing in its grasp. Alex barely had time to react before the emissary slashed forward. He dodged, the heat of the energy sword searing past his face. Syra countered, her gauntlet crackling with violet energy as she swung at the emissary's head. The strike connected, but the emissary didn't even flinch. With an almost lazy motion, it caught Syra's wrist mid-strike and hurled her across the chamber. She slammed into a console, sparks erupting as machinery shattered beneath her weight. "Syra," Alex yelled. Monroe fired first, his rifle unleashing a barrage of plasma rounds. The shots struck the emissary dead-on, but they simply phased through its body, passing harmlessly to the other side. "What the?" Monroe started, but before he could finish, the emissary lifted a hand and sent a wave of kinetic force blasting across the room. Alex felt himself lifted off his feet, slammed against the far wall, his vision going white for a second. The pressure in his chest was unbearable, like an invisible hand was crushing the air out of his lungs. The emissary stepped forward, unfazed, gazing down at them with something close to disappointment. "You fight like all the others," it said, tilting its head. "Primitive, desperate, weak." Alex coughed, struggling to push himself up. They were outmatched. If the emissary was this powerful, the Harbinger itself would be unstoppable. But then he saw it, the celestial engine. The machine pulsed, its energy brighter now, reacting to their presence. Monroe had said this place was built as a failsafe, a last resort against the Harbinger. That meant there had to be a way to activate it. "Monroe," Alex gasped, forcing himself to move. "The engine. Can you turn it on?" Monroe blinked through the pane, then looked toward the glowing control panel beside him. I think so." The emissary turned its gaze toward Monroe. "You will not." Before it could strike, Syra was there. She moved like lightning, her body a blur of energy as she tackled the emissary with everything she had. Her fist connected with its chest, a burst of violet light exploding from the impact. This time, the emissary actually staggered back. Syra didn't stop. She pressed forward, attacking again and again, her movements fueled by sheer determination. Alex scrambled to his feet, firing at the emissary's legs, forcing it to dodge. It was strong, but not invincible. Monroe's fingers flew over the console, decrypting the ancient controls. Symbols flashed across the screen, alien text shifting and rearranging. "The engine is powering up," Monroe shouted. The chamber rumbled, the ground shaking beneath them. The air became heavy, charged with a power so immense that Alex's skin tingled. The emissary realized what was happening. It snarled, its calm demeanor finally cracking. "You dare." But before it could finish, Tyra landed a final devastating blow. Her energy gauntlet flared with violet fire as she struck the emissary dead center in the chest. There was a sound like shattering glass, and then the emissary vanished in a burst of light. Gone. For the first time since entering this fight, there was silence. Alex let out a shaky breath, looking around. The celestial engine was fully awake now, its core humming with raw energy. But outside, the battle had only begun. Monroe pulled up the external feed, and the sight nearly stopped Alex's heart. Above Earth, the Harbinger's fleet had arrived. A sea of black warships stretching across the void, blotting out the stars. Weapons charged, cannons primed. Alex clenched his fists. This was it. Humanity's last stand had begun. The sky above Earth was a battlefield, a swirling chaos of light and destruction. The Harbinger's fleet descended like a storm, their massive warships blotting out the stars, casting shadows upon the ruins of Earth's last defenses. Explosions erupted across the upper atmosphere, streaks of plasma fire lighting up the void. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and on the verge of annihilation. Alex stood on the command deck of the Eos, the last surviving human warship capable of real resistance. His hands gripped the edge of the control panel as he watched the devastation unfold on the holographic display. Red markers covered the screen, enemy ships everywhere. Blue markers, humanity's remaining forces, were flickering and disappearing one by one. Behind him, Syra's voice was steady but tense. "The celestial engine is still powering up. Monroe says it needs more time." "Time we don't have," Alex muttered. A violent tremor shook the ship, throwing him off balance. Direct hit. Alarms blared. The shields were weakening. The Eos wouldn't last much longer. Through the viewport, Alex saw an enemy battleship lock onto them. A moment later, its main cannon fired a blinding white beam, tearing through space toward them. Alex barely had time to react before Xyra grabbed his wrist and pulled him aside. The ship lurched violently, warning sirens screaming as the blast skimmed the hull. Sparks flew from overhead panels. Smoke filled the bridge. A nearby console exploded, sending one of the crew crashing to the floor. "Status." Alex coughed, his voice barely above the chaos. "Shields down to 12%. A technician shouted. Xyra wiped blood from a cut on her forehead. "We won't survive another hit like that." Alex's mind raced. They couldn't win a straight fight, not against these odds. But if Monroe could finish activating the celestial engine, there was still a chance. He turned to the comms officer. "Open a channel to all surviving ships." A second later, the line connected, voices overlapping in a chaotic mess. Captains calling for backup. Soldiers reporting critical damage. Desperate cries for help. Alex took a breath. Then he spoke. "This is Captain Alex Carter of the Eos. Listen to me. We cannot win this battle conventionally. The Harbinger's forces are too strong. But we have one last hope." He glanced at Tyra. She gave him a small nod. "We have activated an ancient weapon, something that could change everything. But we need time. We need you to hold the line." Silence. Then, one by one, the voices returned. "Understood, Captain. We'll hold as long as we can. Give them hell, Carter." Alex clenched his fists. "All ships, form a defensive perimeter around Earth. Buy us every second you can. The response was immediate. Human ships surged forward, moving into formation, their cannons lighting up the darkness as they pushed back against the enemy. For the first time in hours, the tide of battle slowed. But it wasn't enough. Monroe's voice suddenly crackled over the intercom. "Alex, we have a problem." Alex turned. "What kind of problem?" "The celestial engine. It's reacting to the Harbinger's energy signature. If we activate it, it might not just target their fleet. It could wipe out everything." Alex's stomach dropped. Everything. Zara stepped closer, including Earth. Monroe hesitated. I don't know." For a moment, no one spoke. The distant sounds of battle filled the silence. Explosions, screams, the endless hum of destruction. Alex exhaled slowly. This was it, the choice that would decide the fate of everything. "We have no other option," Axira said. "If we don't act now, the Harbinger will wipe out humanity anyway." Alex looked at her. There was no fear in her eyes, only certainty. Monroe's voice was urgent. "You need to decide now." Alex's hands hovered over the control panel. He could feel his own heartbeat, loud, heavy, final. Then he pressed the button. The celestial engine roared to life. A pulse of pure energy erupted from the core, spreading outward like a shockwave, racing toward the Harbinger's fleet. It moved too fast to escape, engulfing every warship in its path. For a second, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the enemy ships began to disintegrate. The Harbinger's fleet, so vast and powerful only moments ago, was falling apart. Their massive warships shattered into dust, their weapons flickered and died. And then, the Harbinger itself appeared, a monstrous leviathan of metal and energy, towering over every other vessel. It had been waiting, watching. The celestial engine's pulse reached it. The Harbinger let out a sound, something ancient and terrible, a scream that shook reality itself. It resisted, its form crackling with violent, shifting energy. But it could not stop the inevitable. The great machine collapsed in on itself, folding into nothingness. And just like that, the battle was over. Silence fell over the battlefield. The stars were visible once more, no longer hidden behind the blackened hulls of the enemy. Alex slumped against the control panel, breathing heavily. Around him, the crew stared in disbelief. Zira exhaled, her shoulders finally relaxing. It's over. But Alex knew better. "No," he said softly. "It's just beginning." Because Earth was in ruins. Humanity had survived, but at a cost. Millions were gone. Cities lay in rubble, and no one knew what the future held. But they were alive. And that meant they had a chance to rebuild. A chance to start again. A new beginning.